get started. Welcome. We are here today to talk about how to measure the effectiveness of a customer health model. This is actually part 2 of our customer health webinar series. I will dive in and just present today's speakers. We have Jill Rubin, Chief Marketing Officer at Totango, and we're honored and thrilled to have a customer here with us today, Shahar Avrahami. He's the Customer Success Operations Manager at Feedvisor. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jill. Jill, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome again. So I'm going to do a brief intro, and then I'm going to turn it over to Shahar to tell his great story. So in part 1, we talked about building a robust health model, which is basically a framework to determine if customers are in good, average, or poor health, so you can plan your engagement strategy. So key things for a health score. It should be comprehensive and granular, so it's meaningful. So you don't want to have too many metrics where you can't really determine what's happening, but too few won't give you the real picture. It needs to be credible or reliable so actually people can use it and they respect its findings. It should be actionable, so when you see things you can take immediate action and you know exactly what to do, and it should be automated. So key things for a health profile. So we suggest that you segment your customers into groups with similar characteristics. So you have like-minded customers together. Each segment should have its own health score. And then we recommend only one segment per customer, and then you can roll them up if you want to get a holistic view. So one big thing to remember is that a health model is not set in stone. I think people probably know that, but it's really important to think about continually reviewing and iterating, because business changes, your customers change. So now you have your health model. How should you use it, and how do you know it's working? That's a key thing. So a good health model is a great early warning system, so you can be proactive versus reactive. It tells you what's going on in your accounts at any time. It enables you to forecast churn, renewal, and upsell opportunities, which is great. You can set up trigger-based campaigns so that you can address specific issues. And the good thing is you can really use it as a way to make it visible to everyone in the company how your customer portfolio is actually doing. So it really tells you, it gives you a good sense of the health of your business. And you can even use it with the board. So now that customer success is becoming a board-level issue, this is a great way to show what the team is doing. And in some cases, companies are now compensating CSMs for driving customers to good health, and that's a good practice as well. So how do you know it's really effective? I think we think there are a few things that you can do. There are obviously others. But one simple thing you can do is just compare your CSM sentiment to what your health score is telling you. So if you have a health score that's green and it looks like your customer is in good health, but your CSM is actually saying there are a lot of issues and they're not happy, then you know that you need to do some further investigation. And maybe your health score isn't accurately reflecting what's really going on in the account. You should always conduct a churn analysis. So again, what was the health at the time of cancellation? Was it accurately reflected? And how does your health score compare to various variables, like how often they're using the product? That could be a good indicator. And also, how does this score compare to others in the same category or a health segment? So that can give you some insight as well. And don't just track what's not working. I think it's good to track what's working too, so you can get some relative measures. Are there commonalities between people who are renewing or you're getting upsell opportunities? Sometimes you could have a very sticky feature that really keeps people engaged, and so you may want to incorporate that into your health score. So there's lots of flexibility, and you need to just continually monitor, review, iterate. So I think in terms of how you can fix a health score, one of the most efficient and effective ways to change a model is to add segments. So you can fine-tune your health definition and make it very targeted. So one size does not fit all. That's just not the customer base. So make sure that when you do that, though, make sure you give it enough time to test so you can determine if it's doing what you want. And that's the big thing. Change is good, but moderate, iterate, change again if you need to, or add another segment if it's not accurately reflecting what your customers are doing. It's like taking a recipe and fine-tuning it depending on who you're cooking for. You may have a family of 5, and you've got different tastes and likes in your own family, so you've got to maybe cook different things for each person. So just kind of test and iterate. I think that's a very important thing to do. So Feedvisor has built a 4-stage approach to building an effective health model, and I'm going to turn it over to Shachar to talk about how they approached it and what they found with their model. Shachar, it's all yours.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having us here. We're here to present our way to measure the effectiveness of a customer health model. We did a process around it, and we're here to share it. First, I just want to talk a bit, explain what is Fitvisor and who we are and what we do. So Fitvisor, our product, is an algorithmic repricing and revenue intelligence solution for retailers that helps them to maximize their profit and drive their business growth. I joined Fitvisor 2.5 years ago to the Success Group, and we are the owner of the existing customers' revenue, either renewal and upsells. As you can see in the graph on the right hand, we had a massive growth in the last 2 years, from 90 employees when I joined in the Tel Aviv office. Now we are 35 employees in 3 different locations. And we have CSM, support, education, professional services, analysts, SMEs, and I'm in charge of the operations. And with this massive growth came lots of challenges. At the beginning, it was very easy to understand how every customer is doing it. But now, when we are on 3 locations and so many different positions, we needed to find a single source of truth that will tell the story of the customer. That's why we joined Totango, and we set up a goal to use the customer health model to help us predict and focus on what we need to do. So the first version of the customer health score, it was mainly based on a gut feeling. A year ago, we joined Totango, and we set up the first version. We defined 2 health profiles, one for onboarding and one for ongoing. Per each profile, we defined between 6 to 7 criteria based on what we thought our customers should do with our product. And during the period, we did some changes when we released new use case or defined a new process. And after 8 months, we thought it was the right time for us to stop and think how what we defined is doing and to analyze the impact of it. So I'm going to share with you our actual insights from this analysis. So first thing we wanted to check, did we manage to predict the churn? So we called it hits. And we found out that 81% of our customers that chose to churn Fitvisor, our model marked them as poor, which is a really, really good number when we talk about predictions. The second thing that we wanted to check is how long in advance we could predict these churns. And we found out that 45% of the customers that churned us were marked either as not poor or were marked as poor less than 4 weeks. So if we're talking about trying to save the customer, we found out that we didn't have enough time to try and save the customers. The third thing that I wanted to check is what makes the account poor. And I found out that over 50% of the reasons that turned the account poor were due to CSM sentiment, which is a manual field that the CSM needs to update, and that marked the account as poor. So if I'm talking about a model that's supposed to help us to predict, I want that the automation will be much higher number. The last thing that we checked was regarding renewals, and I checked what is the percentage of false alarms that we have. And I found out that we could predict over 60% of of renewals, if I'm talking about the good and average, but I saw that 36% of the customers that chose to renew with us, we marked them as poor. So this number is something that I wanted to check. So after 8 months, we decided, as I said, to review the process and to go to the second phase of the customer health score. And before we did it, we thought what would be the best method and approach to do that. So we developed a four stages cycle, that every time that we will need to create a new version of the customer health score, then we will go and make sure that we do each of the components of this cycle. I'm now going to share each one of the steps. The first one is define customer segments. As Jill mentioned, we need to split our customers into groups that behave differently, and within the group they behave the same. It can be by size or plan. It can be by customer journey phase, products if you have different products, and indeed each customer should be qualified for one segment at a time. So if on version 1 we only had two profiles, onboarding and ongoing, now we thought it's the right time to split the ongoing into two different, into ongoing strategic and ongoing SMBs, because they have different use cases within our system. So for this version, we had 3. The second step in the cycle is to define the customer health score metrics. So we thought to ourselves, and we asked ourselves, what do we need to track and know to decide if the customer health is good? So I'm going to talk at this slide about the theoretical idea behind it. And we found 4 key metrics that we want to make sure that we track and cover in our metrics for the customer health score. The first thing that we want to know, and we call it awareness, do we have the ability to understand the customer status? And lots of questions such as, when was the last time we spoke with the customer? Is the customer responding? Did we follow up on the last NPS score? All of those basically mark the ability to us to understand how the customer is doing. The second thing is the outcome and the results of the relationship with the customer. Do we show good ROI? What is the CSM sentiment, or as we call it, churn probability? How many agent support tickets are open? Those first 2 basically talk about the communication and relationship between us and the customer. After that, we wanted to talk about usage. So under usage, we decided to split it into 2 aspects. The first one, we call it usage of scale. How deep the customer invested with our product. And if we talk about product stickiness, so what is the frequency of the usage? Does the customer log in every day, or log in just once a month? How many licenses are renewed? And does he have advanced integrations? We think that if the customer will have advanced integration such an API, it will make him more dependent on our product. And the second aspect of usage, we call it usage of scope. How wide is the customer's dependencies in different use cases? So we believe that the customer should be either deeply invested and wide invested. How many different needs our product can help the customer. So those are the 4 key metrics that we look at, and we decided to look at it at the multiplication method, because we believe that just like a simple mathematical equation, if one of those components will be 0, we won't be able to understand and say that the customer is doing well. So this was the theoretical level. Now I'm going to deep dive into the detailed metrics. This is an example of our approach to do it. I'm not going to elaborate on the metrics because it's very, very specific, but I just want my intention with this side is to make sure that you cover and define your sub-metrics to each of the key metrics. You need to find how can you measure your awareness, your relationship, your usage of scale and scope. I do want to talk about one thing, the ROI. We found that it's extremely important to have the ability to measure the ROI to the customers. For us, it's very easy because we want to make them more money, so it's very easy to measure it. But no matter what your product is, you should find the best way to prove that you show a good ROI, if you save in time or money or manpower. And these metrics is a combination of auto alerts, which I want to be the majority of them, but I also have a subjective CSM risk rating to have the ability to the success manager to also control the customer health. After that, and the third step of the cycle is to create follow-up items that will help us save time and be more efficient. And so based on the customer health score criteria that we define, I'm trying to create a follow-up items for the CSM that will help them either save time or help them focus on a specific topics. And here I use many of Totango's use cases to help me with it. I'm just going to give some ideas and examples. So for example, if an account is marked as poor because it gave us a low NPS score, so I'm triggering an automated success plate to the CSM to contact the customer. So he needs to contact the customer and understand what the bad feedback. And once he completed the task, then the health score will be back to as it was before. So this is just one example. Another example of poor health, that if our customer didn't log in our dashboard over 30 days, then we mark them as poor. And we also have an automation campaign that will send directly to the customer. It seems very simple and personal. I noticed that you haven't logged into the dashboard. Can I assist with something? It looks extremely personal, and for this specific campaign, we have 80% success. After we send them this campaign, then we can see that they actually log into the system, which is a huge success for us. However, we're trying to utilize those tools not only for the poor health. So for example, if we have an average health because they didn't use one of our use cases, it's under usage of scope, then we also have an auto campaign with a guide, with a training guide how to use one of our use cases. It's called non-competitive. And we even use it for the good health, because if we have a good ROI field, then we open a success rate to the CSM with an upsell opportunity and focus the success manager on this account because it might have a good upsell opportunity on this one. After we did the follow-up items and basically set up the second version or the new version of the customer health score, we need to do a retrospection. And for me, this is the most important part of my presentation because it gives us the ability to understand if we defined our health model well. So I put a timeline here, and I'm going to explain about it. So after we launch the second version of our customer health model, what I'm doing, this is under my responsibility as a success operations, I do a micro-level analysis on every renewal, churn, upsell, downgrade case we have, and I try to investigate and understand first what was the health score on the day of the case, if it was an upsell or downgrade or churn. And second, I try to understand what impact this prediction. And for me, I understood after the first version that I can't just set it and forget it. I need to constantly understand on the micro-level analysis on every account what impact it. So I suggest a time frame between 3 to 6 months to this version of the health model, or if you feel that you have enough data. After 3 to 6 months, I'm doing a macro level analysis, and I take some feedback from the CSMs because it's extremely important for me to understand if I manage to save time for them, if I help them to focus, if the model helps them to focus. And I'm also doing an effectiveness metric analysis based on the micro level analysis. I'm going to elaborate in the next slide about it. But after I do the macro level analysis, I'm ready to launch the third version of the customer health score. With the help of the cycle, I'm going to adjust the segments, metrics, and action items. So this is the process that I do. Regarding KPIs that can help us understand the effectiveness of the metrics, so we define 4 KPIs, and we set up a target to be achieved in the next 180 days. This is the time frame that we set up for the second version of the health score. So the 4 criteria and KPIs that I sign in to my manager and to the team as follows. The first one is the customer health score at the week of churn. This is the most simple one. Could I predict the churn or not? So my goal for the second version is at least 90% of the customers the churn will be under poor customer health score. The second KPI is the percentage of false alarms. How many customers chose to renew, and we mark them as poor. So my target was that the poor customer health score will be no more than 20% from customers that renewed with us. The third KPI, I call it number of weeks from poor to churn. This KPI helps us to understand how long in advance we could predict the churn. So for the second version of our customer health model, we want to have at least 70% of churn to be identified 4 weeks ahead of churn. So we want for 70% of our customers that eventually chose to renew to have the ability to try to save them at least 1 month. The last KPI, I call it man versus machine because it's the number of the poor customer health score, the churn, due to subjective risk rating. So I want to have at least 60% of the customers that churn to be identified through automated early signals and not through CSM sentiment. So this was my commitment for the second version of the customer health score. I can happily share the current status that we have. The second version is not over yet, but until this moment, 100% of the customers that churn were marked as poor. I do think that I need to improve the percentage of false alarms because the target is 20% and I already have 24%. So I need to find and think the ways to improve this number. But the number of weeks from poor to churn, if you remember, at first the number was 55%, and now it's improved to 86%, which is a really, really good improvement for us. And the man versus machine, so now we have 63% of the customers that churn were marked as poor through our automated early signals, which is really, really great for us. So my takeaways from all of this journey, and it is a journey, that the first thing that building a customer health model is not a one-time job. You can't just, it's not a sprint for us. It's a marathon that we always need to try and improve it. And we do it by an ongoing learning process. As I mentioned, we constantly analyze our churns and renewals as they occur because this is the only way for us to really understand the success of the model. And we need to measure our health model in an empiric data-driven method because this is the way that we can actually prove and improve the model. And once we prove good correlations and predictions, the team can trust the model and can rely on the model to focus their day-to-day. So this was our journey using Totango to define our customer health score. And as I said, the journey is not over yet. I still need in few more months to improve and create the third version of the customer health model. But now I have the method and the way to do it.
Great. Thank you, Shahar, and thank you, Jill. Wow, we packed a lot into that 25 minutes. And so I want to encourage the audience, in case you haven't noticed, in the bottom left corner is a chat window, and you can submit any questions that you would like to ask either presenter. We've had a few come in, so let's just dive right in. Shahar, someone wanted to know, you said 180 days. And just curious, why did you set it for that time frame? It might be kind of long. Do you tweak it in between? Can you explain that time period?
Yeah, sure. So the reason we define 180 days is we believe that after we do the changes, we need to have the system to adopt to it because many of our criteria are based on, for example, 30 days time period. So we want to make sure that we have enough time and data to aggregate before we do another change. However, of course, we do tweak it in between. For example, the 24% that I have on false alarms, this is something that I'm not going to keep until the end of the 180 days. I'm going to try and think now how can I improve it? And if when we release a new use case, so we don't wait until the third version, we will add it as a criteria to this version. So for sure, we do it.
Great, thank you. Another question maybe that you both can answer is, how do you capture or log CSM sentiment? Shahar, do you want to go first?
For us, it's a pick list field. We call it churn probability, and the CSM needs to mark on the account. If he feels that the churn probability is critical, high, medium, or low, we have a definition for every one of the stages. And we also use Totango to alert them if they don't update this field on a regular basis. But for us, it's a pick list field.
Jill, do you want to elaborate?
Yes. So similar with Totango, it's an attribute in Totango that our CSMs update on a regular basis and are alerted if they're not updating it. And it's actually one of our health measures. So we use it religiously because CSMs are talking to the account continually. So they have a very, very good insight into what's happening at the account. So we use it, yes, a lot.
Thank you. All right, Shahar, a new question came in regard to your follow-up items. If you see average health based on usage of scope, you run a campaign named How to Use Non-Competitive. What do you mean by usage of scope, and what does that meant? I know that's very specific to your business. Do you want to go back to that one slide and walk through it a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. This slide, right? Or
yeah, I think so.
Okay. So in the theoretical level, we divided the usage into two different aspects, usage of scale and usage of scope. So scale means how deep the customer invested with our product. The things that we measure is how many times he logged in a month, or how many licenses he used. If he has different advanced integrations, so this is under usage of scale. In usage of scope, we offer several use cases. I don't want to go into details because it's very specific to our product, but one of them we call it non-competitive, one of them we call it inventory, one of them we call it data and analytics. So we want to make sure that our customers use both deeply with Feedvisor, but also widely. So I want them to use both non-competitive and inventory. So if they don't use both inventory and non-competitive, then they won't be able to be good. They won't be bad, but they won't be able to be good. So we mark them as average. But as an automated way for us to try and encourage them to use the non-competitive, so we send them a campaign that helps them. It's a really, really nice guide on how to guide that's supposed to motivate them and show them the value in using the non-competitive. And then when they use it, then they will be good again.
Thank you. Thank you. So while you keep reading through the questions, this is a question for Jill. Someone would like to know more about Totango and the integrations for health. Are we able to integrate with applications like note-taking ones, Evernote, Bear, Excel? Do you want to answer that person's question?
Sure, yes. We are able to integrate with any application, really. We've got an open API tool, so if it's not an out-of-the-box integration, then you can use that, and we can certainly help you. But we have virtually all of our customers are integrating with every system that feeds customer-facing information. So pretty much any app we can integrate with.
Thanks. And Shahar, I don't know if there's a specific question you like in the queue that you want to answer, but someone also would like to know if you have a specific key metric, or what is the most important key metric that you would maybe define or select in your own health model.
So we pay lots of attention to the awareness part, because I believe that this is something that it's very easy to forget. but we defined a very detailed process on what we call touch points, when we need to talk with the customers and what happens if we don't speak with the customer. Because we believe that at the end of the day, we have to have the ability to understand how our customers is doing. So, for example, as long as the touch points are according to the plan, then the account will be in good health. But after a while, if the customer is missing a touch point, for us it's after 30 days, then we will mark them as average, and we will alert the CSM that, hey, this account is missing a touch point, you should try and contact the customer as soon as possible. And if after additional 30 days the customer is still, we still didn't have a touch point with the customer, so we mark the customer as a non-responsive account. And then once we do that, we will mark the account as poor. And then the CSM will need to have a plan of action on how to re-engage with the customer. And once he does and adds the relevant touch point, then he will be good again. So we pay a really high attention to the awareness part.
Thank you. So one question that came in was, did you have any data challenges as you were setting up your health model? Did you experience any of that, and how did you address them? And then maybe after you, Shahar, maybe Jill can weigh in on that too.
So we use Salesforce as the way to aggregate many of the data, but obviously we connect the attributes to Totango. So we have a very strong bidirectional communication between Totango and Fitvisor. So for example, we use tags in order to identify, for example, non-responsive accounts. So we define the tag in Totango, and then we move it back to Salesforce, and then in Salesforce we are able to see it over there. I don't recall a data collection challenge, but we keep those two systems in very good sync.
So I think that. Thank you. Sorry, let me switch over, Jill. Take you off mute. Go ahead, Jill.
Sorry, I got a little anxious there. So I think that's great, Shahar. I think a lot of our accounts are not that clean. So we get this question from a lot of our companies, particularly since we work with large enterprise accounts. As you know, data is just not that simple, and it's not that clean, and it's often kind of messy, and it's from disparate systems. So virtually every customer says, how are we going to be able to do this? And the good thing, one of the cool things about Totango is with our foundation platform, DNA CX, it's a super flexible data model. So no data schema. We could take any kind of data, and we can pretty much immediately begin to gain insights from it. So that's, I think, one of our strongest points is that we are data-driven. We are used to dealing with what companies call messy data, and we can take it and use it, and then you can gain insights from it pretty quickly. So and we have people up and running in a matter of weeks, I think, versus many 6 to 9 months, because we have this super flexible platform.
Great. Thank you both. I just want to remind everyone on the screen you'll see both contact information for both Jill and Shahar to learn more about Totango and Feedvisor. I know both our presenters are willing to answer questions even after the event. We are recording today's presentation. We'll send that out with access to the slides via SlideShare. And I want to thank everyone. It's been 35 minutes of your time. We'll go ahead and wrap things up and give you back the rest of your day. So I want to thank you, Shahar. Thank you, Jill, both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.